All right, so now we're going to talk about file management in Linux. By file management, we mean creating files, displaying a list of files, copying files, renaming them, deleting them, finding them no matter where they are in any directory or subdirectory, displaying the content of what's inside the files, and counting lines, words, or characters in the files. I'm currently logged into the Matrix Linux server, and with PWD I can see where I am. I'm inside the pmdir directory, so as you know, this is my home directory, /home/praveen.mitera. And within that, it's pmdir, and I have a whole bunch of files here that we're going to work with, and we're going to create some. So how do we create empty files? That is done, one way is to do a touch command. So if I say touch, and I say file 2, I want to maybe create 2 of them, file 3. So what I'm saying here is create an empty file. One of them will be called file 2, another one can be called file 3. So when I hit enter, it's going to create these 2. Now, if these already existed, then they would get overwritten by default. In order to check the list of files, I can do an ls command. ls-l will show me a detailed list of files. And let me say that I want to find all file names that begin with file. So as you can see, I have some other files, but I also have the 2 that I just created, file 2 and file 3. They both just got created. If I'd simply did an ls command and said show me all files where the name of the file begins with file followed by anything, just with ls command I only get names. ls-l command I get names and longer list of information for that. I can also create a hidden file or a hidden directory. So if I do a touch command, but instead of starting the file name with a letter or a number and so on, I begin that name with a dot. Anything beginning with a dot in the name is actually a hidden file. So I'm going to create something called my file. You can give it any name. So if I say touch.myfile, I'm actually creating a hidden file. So if I want to look at that, I can go ls-la, which shows me all files including hidden files. And now if I say mifile, beginning with a dot, I'm going to be able to see that one. We can also copy files. So here I'm saying copy file 1 to file 2. File 1 is the original file, and file 2 is what I want to copy it into. So when I do this, it is taking the content of file 1 and putting it into a new file called file 2. If file 2 already exists, it's going to overwrite it by default. So what if we don't want to overwrite? We can do that by saying copy. A -i says copy interactively. So the rest of the command is the same. From file 1, I want to copy into file 2. Now, as you know, file 2 already exists because we just copied into it. So now if I repeat my copy command, but because I'm saying copy interactively, it's going to prompt me because it says I'm already seeing file 2. Do you still want me to write on top of that? So when I hit enter, see it says overwrite file 2, and I can say yes or no. If I say yes, it's going to go ahead and overwrite it, but it's giving me that choice. We can rename files, and to do that, the command is mv. So think of rename as move. You're moving file 1 to file 2. So mv, file 1, file 2. So the original file is file 1, and I'm saying rename it to file 2. And when I do that, it's now taken the file 1. It's no longer going to be available. It's deleted in effect, and the new name for that is file 2. So if I was to look for file 1 by saying ls file 1, it's not going to find it because we just renamed that file. If I try to look for file 2, it will find it because we renamed file 1 to file 2. So move command. Now if you move let's say I want to rename file 2 to file 3. Again, if file 3 exists, it's going to get overwritten. So in order to prevent that, I can do the same thing as before and actually put -I for interactive. So now if it finds file 3, which it did, it's asking me, and I have a choice to overwrite it or give it a new name. We can delete files. So the command for that is rm. So if I say rm file 3, it's going to remove that, which means if I try to look for it, it's not going to find it because I just deleted that file. Now, sometimes you put files in some subdirectories and you may not remember where it is. So find command helps us find files. So let's look at some examples of find command. And it's quite useful in a number of ways. For example, if I want to find, now I want to find in the current, dot means current directory. If I know the full name of the file I'm looking for, let's say I'm looking for a file called file 2a, I can give the name and then I can say the type is F, and that distinguishes it from something which is a directory. So now it's going to look for and display where it finds that particular file. If it was in a subdirectory, it's going to first give the name of the subdirectory and then give you the file name. We can also say find in the current directory when the name begins with the letter A and has anything after that. And again, the type in this case is F. So it finds any files that begin with the letter A, which in this case is this one file called ABC. We can also find those files in the current directory where it has been modified or created in the last few minutes. So let's say I want to look for something that's been modified or created in the last 20 minutes, and I want to indicate only files. So it found something called .myfile, which I had created earlier a few minutes ago. So this is handy when you remember you changed something or created something, but you may not remember the exact name. This will help you find those. We can also find in the current directory based on size. So let's say I want to find everything that's greater than 50 kilobytes because I maybe want to look for and clear some of the larger files. This is the way to do that. So now I said greater than 50K and it found one file which falls in that criteria. So this will allow me to find and delete large files if I wanted to. I can also find empty files. And in this case, I'm going to say just the files, not the directories. And it's going to find all of them. So you'll see a lot of empty files that I have because I'm using them in examples. So in case after I'm all done, I want to delete them, I can actually display them first in this manner just to see what I find. And I look at those and I go, yep, I want to delete all of them. If that's the case, I can repeat that command. By the way, if you push your up arrow key, it brings up the previous command that you typed. And now I can add a delete option here. And if I add a delete option, what that's going to do is whatever files it just found here, all of those will get deleted. For now, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to use those files in other examples. But that gives you an idea of how you can find and delete empty files. And the last example I'm giving you is find in the current directory, and the modification time is 0, which means today. So this refers to the day. Day 0 means today. So all files which I have modified or created today are listed here. So again, that's a quick way of doing that. If I said 1 here, that would be yesterday, and so on. Now let's look at displaying the content of files. So far we've just looked at names of files with the ls command or file, find command, and copy, move, etc. But what if we wanted to look inside the content of files? the command to do that is the cat, which is the abbreviation for concatenate. So if I said cat and I give a name of a file, there's a file called new file 2 which I have, and by saying cat I'm displaying the content of that. So in this file I just copied a whole bunch of email, phone number, and some other information, and I just copied it again and again so that I get a few lines. So in this case I put line numbers in the beginning so it's easy for me to demonstrate. So in this case this file has 54 lines all the way here. So I said cat new file 2 and it shows me the content of whatever is inside new file 2. All right. What if I wanted to have it so it doesn't scroll off the screen very quickly? One way to do that is to say more, which is a command which stops at the end of the page. So if I repeat the same file content, which is file 2, but instead of saying cat, I'm going to say more. And what that does is it stops at the end of the line. So it displayed the first 24, and instead of going all the way to line 54, it just stopped here. Now, in this utility or in this command called more, I can hit enter and it keeps going one line down. So you see that? One line down. Or if I wanted one page at a time, I'm going to hit the space bar, and now it goes from 24 to 44. It went one page up. If I hit the space bar again, it went all the way to 54, and then that was the last line, so it stopped. So more is one way to display something and stop at the end of the page. The exact same thing can also be done by saying cat, name of the file, and then use this symbol which is right above your enter key. It's on top of the enter key, and this is called a pipe symbol. And what this is saying is execute this command and then send the output into another command. So I'm going to send it into more. So it's going to cat or display the content of new file 2, but instead of showing it on the screen, it says I'm going to send that into more. So the result is exactly what we just saw. So now the more command is going to make it stop at the end of 20 lines, and I can hit the space bar to go to the next 20 lines, space bar to go to the end. So both of those ways I can stop at the end of a screen. Another utility that's very similar is called less. So if I say less new file 2, it's doing exactly the same thing. So stops at the end of 20. I can hit spacebar, goes to 40. But the less command allows me to go up with my arrow key. So I'm just going up with my arrow key, down with my arrow key. So it's a lot more useful than more. If I want to come out of this, either from more or to come out from less, I do Q for quit and I'm out to my prompt again. What if I wanted to display the first few lines in a file? The head command lets me do that. Now by default, it's going to show me the first 10 lines. So if I just said head and gave the name of the file, it shows me the first 10 lines. But what if I just wanted to see the first 5? Then I can say how many lines and then give the name of the file. Now it shows me, because I said head-5, I'm only seeing the first 5 lines. Similarly, I can look at the bottom of the file. So if I use the tail command, that's just Linux humor, head and tail, top and bottom. So the tail command, again by default, it's going to show me the last 10 lines. So 54 was the end, so it shows me the last 10. If I simply say tail and the name of the file. But if I just wanted the last 4 lines, for example, then I would go tail, indicate the number of lines, and then indicate the name of the file. So now it's showing me just the last 4 lines. You can also sort the content of files. So I have a file called names. If I cat names, I'm going to see the content. So that's what I have in there. I have names of people. So in this, if I wanted this information or this data sorted, then I can say sort and give the name of the file. Now, as you notice, it actually sorts it by the ASCII collating sequence. In other words, A is at the top S is at the bottom of all the names that are there. If I want to sort in reverse, I can use a -R and then give the name of the file. And now S is at the top, A is at the bottom. You also notice that in this file with names, I have two lines that are identical. So it has Fred, and that is identical for both. There are two lines with the same name. So what if I wanted unique lines only? Sort allows me to do that. And I can go -U, then give the name. And now it does not show Fred twice because it found two lines to be identical, and it's just giving me the unique lines only. The same thing can be achieved by saying sort with names, and I can pipe it through unique, and that'll give me the same type of results. Sometimes you may want to find out what is the difference in the content of two files. So if I cat names, that's one file. If I cat names2, that's a second file. And although they're similar, there are some minor differences. For example, the very first name here is John, and the very first name here is Kenneth. Then we have the same data, but this line is Sam, and this line is Simon. The last line is the same. So there are two lines here that are different. So anytime that you want to find out the difference in two files, in the content of two files, you can use the diff command. So in this case, I'm going to say diff names, and then give the second file name, which is names2. And what it does is it goes through and pulls out and shows you the differences that are between the two files. All right, and the last thing we're going to learn with respect to files is how we can use a command called WC, which stands for word count. So if I cat names, you can see there's a few lines here and a few words and a few characters. So if this is a small file, it's easy for me to see how many lines, how many words, and how many characters. But that's not always going to be the case. You may have a large file with hundreds of thousands of lines. So how can you get a quick count of how many lines there are? So to do that, we're going to pipe it through WC, which stands for word count. When I do that, it gives me three numbers. The first number represents how many lines. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 lines in this file. The second number here represents words. In other words, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but then there's a space and a second word here. That's why there's 7 words altogether. That's what this number represents. So 6 lines, 7 words, and finally how many characters. So it actually counted each character here, and in total there's 37 characters. We can also choose to use -L here, which stands for lines. Now I just get the number of lines. If I use -W, which stands for words, I just get how many words there are in the file. And finally, if I say -C, that's for how many characters, and it tells me 37 characters. So this separates each of those numbers individually. So this gives you an idea of how to work with files, how to create, delete, copy, rename, find, display the content, as well as count the lines inside the file. Thank you.